So let's talk about the weekend. What's going to be interesting is I know we're back to the concrete. We've been running the concrete in the summer. The big conversation about the concrete is always when the bottom goes away and they move to the top, whether they spray the stuff, don't spray the stuff. And it's going to be hard to predict because the weather, while it's supposed to be a very nice weekend for the fans, it's still cool versus the summer race. That's going to absolutely change how the rubber goes on the concrete. I also think this is hard because the professor already pinged me and was like, hey, what are we comparing for Bristol? Look, I can make an argument it's a mini Dover. I can make arguments, but the truth is, Bristol is Bristol is Bristol. There is nothing else like Bristol. And it's that's why you mentioned Matty D back in the day. You mentioned DiBenedetto. We see Busher run well here, right? It's a little bit of a standalone. I'll be honest, it's a standalone from the bottom to the top. Like, if you knew it was going to be a bottom race, there are certain guys that are good at the bottom. If you knew it was going to be a top race, but at least I don't know. And I've talked to some people in the garage area, and I've talked to two very well-respected people, and they've given me two completely different answers about whether it be in the bottom or the top. So that tells me the garage doesn't know, right? This isn't secret information. Every interview on Saturday will be about, well, we don't know when it's going to move up, when it will take rubber, when the top will get dominant. I just don't think we know.
I have a question for you, Steve. Some books they allow you to parlay matchups.
Love that.
So, for example, if I were to take William Byron over Blaney, Byron is -110, and then take Ross Chastain versus Kyle Busch at -110, it becomes +264. Is that something that you maybe would look at?
Totally. I would be shocked if the book let you have the same driver. I don't think you can two against Ryan Blaney, because then if Blaney wrecks, you cash in. If you find a book that'll let you do, I think that's an absolute hammer bet, right? Because then if you're Tim's and you're fading Logano, and you say it's because Logano has some issues finishing here, then if they'll let you parlay two matchups against Logano, but I think that's outside the restriction in most books. But I love an idea of parlaying a couple matchups together. It just, like we said at the beginning, it just adds a lot of entertainment, and I think that it's fair to, if you're going to fade, say, a manufacturer, that's another great way to do it, right? If you think, hey, man, the Toyotas are going to be great, well, then pick one or two Toyota drivers over a couple of a different manufacturer, and at least then you have that going for you.
Speaking of Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain, Professor, what are the numbers shown in that head-to-head, considering
it
Tier 4
says
cars?
Kyle Busch, as far
Vegas,
as you can see, if he goes back a long ways.
Because Kyle Busch is favored against Ross.
Well, how far back do you want to go, Stevie?
Well, that's the problem. Just do next gen, and I would say it's probably Ross.
It's 1-1 if you do next gen. Remember,
Yeah.
we've only had two races here because of the dirt.
I believe this. Look at the teams that ran well at Vegas and Phoenix. And I would make a generic statement that they understand two different style of racetracks, two very different style of aero packages, two very different style of Goodyear tire. So I would just say they're on top of something. I'm not going to say what it is. I don't know what it is. But whether it's preparation of information, you follow me here, Tim's, it's kind of like a golfer. Like, I don't care if we're changing from Augusta to going out and playing an ocean course somewhere. If the guy is striking the ball, he's going to keep striking the ball, even if it doesn't maybe, speaking of which, we're going to get to the players because I have a ball striker on my list for the players. But
we have a little gripe with you, too, on golf, so we'll get there.
With me?
Yeah.
Okay. But so anyway, I'm taking a team that runs well at both places, right? Like, who had the best speed? If you take Vegas and Phoenix, who would be your top 3 or 4 cars, Professor, with a lack of speed out of Hendrick at Phoenix?
So you had Truex, Gibbs, Chastain, Blaney, and Reddick were all top 10 in both races.
This is not, even though it's a short track, it is not the short track aero package. This is not what we ran at Phoenix. Because using the size of the track to describe the track is the dumbest thing in the world. So, because this isn't a short track. You would never take a short track car to Bristol, ever. When you're building your own car, this wasn't a short track car. So that's why these are dumb, and this is why New Hampshire is a short track, because you would absolutely take a short track car there. But we digress. That's a conversation for the download one day. Could come to fisticuffs. Say those names again.
Truex. You hear that? Truex. Gibbs, Chastain, Blaney, Reddick.
Man, I'm Just something in my gut tells me it's going to be Gibbs' good weekend.
Yep.
I like Reddick. If it's a top race, I think Reddick's pretty. That's a guy who might fly through the field. I don't know how good he is on the bottom, I'll be honest, but I feel like he's a guy who can really rip that top if it's a top race.
So he's good at the top of the high-speed tracks, but his Bristol numbers are not great.
Yeah, his Bristol numbers are terrible. So that's where the predictor has him way down because of that.
Yeah.
But I think they're not going to be down forever, Tim's. I think it's an experience thing. He's had to run the dirt. He has all these different things. I think the light bulb will click at some point. I just don't know if this is the weekend.
Yeah.
I think I have a bet for you, Tims. I want to get Steven, rest of your thoughts on it. Ryan Blaney versus Reddick. Reddick is minus 106.
Well, Tim's is fading Blaney, but I mean Blaney runs so well here, and he just survives. He just shows up at the end.
Yeah, he's struggled here recently, though. He's been caught up in stuff. So, he has one top 10 in the last 5 races here.
Where did we do last week on the number of leaders? I see that bet's back. Drivers to lead a lap over or under 6.5. Man, I feel like it has to be an over just because of the pit road.
We had 6 at Phoenix. I don't know what. And 10 lead changes. I think we were on the over on both of those.
Yeah.
Or we were on the under on both, right?
You were under on both, and they both cashed under.
Yeah.
I like over 6.5 with drivers to lead a lap at Bristol.
At minus 130?
Yep. I think there's no way they have less than 6 leaders there.
It's been 6 both times in the next gen car.
Ooh.
I'm going over.
Yeah, I said over 2. Do you think this correlates to the number of lead changes, too, which is 15.5? Because you got to get at least 7, right? 7 lead changes, and then back and forth on pit road. I don't know. I think that's kind of a low number.
So I like over 6.5 and under on lead changes.
Really? Okay.
Why is that?
Because I think what happens is the track starts in a certain condition. Somebody runs out there and leads 80 or 100 laps. Then there's a pit stop with a lead change. And then somebody else leads 125 laps. I would say if you look at the average lap leaders at Bristol, there's probably at least 2, if not 3 guys that lead over 100 laps in each race. And I think it's a little bit of the track changes. You know, the concrete rubber gets put down on it. You go from the bottom to the top. People's cars come and go. So now professors can't wait to tell me I'm totally wrong, but lap leaders, I usually, right? There's usually at least a couple guys that lead over 100, maybe 3. So the only reason I'm getting over 6.5 leaders is I have 3 of them leading less single-digit laps, Tim's. I have 3 of them leading like a 1 or a 2 lap, whatever.
Yeah. Like a pit cycle lap led or something like that.
All right, is there anything else? I'm so interested in this golf bone you have to pick. I'm questioning, is there anything else for the race?
Yeah, I just have one matchup that I think is my hammer, probably for the week, and it's Bubba over Eric Jones. He's minus 110. He's the dog. Only really because it's 14th versus 25th in the model. I know we talked about Jones a little bit earlier, but I don't know. It's a pretty big discrepancy. I think you got to just place it.
Hey, last year when the pressure was on the line in that night race, Bubba did what he needed to do, and it was a stressful evening. That tells me that, there should be way less stress this time, way less pressure.
Yeah.
I know we talked about qualifying at Hamlin and Seabell, obviously how good they are. Qualifying matchup, Hamlin minus 130, Bell plus 100. Obviously, Denny's really good, but so is Bell. At plus 100 for a matchup, do you just throw something down on that?
Yes. And because what else you going to do on Saturday?
Saturday afternoon, maybe a couple of your basketball games haven't tipped off yet. You throw a couple dollars down, and you're going to know instantly. That's what I like is some of these basketball games, you can, bet first score. Is 2 scores in the first minute? You can bet that.
No. Who would do such a thing? I'm going to be the only guy that comes back from the Bahamas stark white. They'd be like, what happened? I'm like, well, there was no windows in the sports book.
That was Tim's in Nashville. He was on the boat undercover. I'm out in the water.
Yeah. Not anymore. Travel be up there on the boat tapping away.
before we move to golf, are there any of these top 10 double and triple driver bets on the far right that pique your interest?
I've been burned with these.
I feel like top 10 is
Man.
such a
So many minus money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's enough juice for the squeeze.
The Briscoe Gregson one is really just kind of the long shot, plus 950, obviously. If you think it's going to be kind of chaotic day or Stuart Haas is going to have a good day,
Yeah.
maybe, but
And those two have run really well this year, especially Grayson.
Gregson's
I have to agree with Tim's. If I was going to take one, I would take Bubba Jones or Briscoe Gregson, just because you got a couple Toyotas or a couple SHR cars. One's at 550, one's at 950. You know, because I look at that as almost like a true parlay. I know it's only a two-legger, but it's like a long shot two parlay. It's a really, really, really small wager. It's just a fun, cheering bet. I don't think it's, you know, we talk two different ways on this pod a lot. We talk one about trying to give you some insight to have a profitable or a more enjoyable weekend because you won more bets than you lost. But when we talk pure entertainment, like truthfully, you're going to buy a movie ticket anyway. So if you're going to go spend the movie ticket price on a handful of bets, that would be one I would pick just because if it hits, it would be fun.